Good afternoon and welcome to the Grand Rapids Community College Board of Trustees meeting Monday, September 21, 2020. Wondering if you, President Pink, or you trustees have anyone in our virtual audience that you would like to introduce to us at this time. Anyone?
I do not, Chairperson Cucci, but thank you.
Anyone? All right, then our first item of business is the approval of the agenda. Trustees, this is the time to move any item from our consent agenda for additional consideration if you feel you would like to do that. Are there any suggested changes or amendments to today's agenda? Hearing none, a motion please to accept the agenda as was presented in our packet.
So moved.
Thank you, Kathleen. Is there a support for that?
Support.
All right. Did you catch that, Misty? Did you get who that was? All right. Any kind of discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Carried. We now move to public comment. Now is the first opportunity for public comment for anyone in our virtual audience. If you wish to make comment on today's agenda, now is the time to do that. We invite you to use your chat function on your screen, recognizing that using the chat function is a little more clumsy than just walking to a podium to make those comments. We're going to give you a little time to do that. And the way we're going to proceed is this. We're going to just proceed with our agenda. And I'm asking Misty to just give you approximately 5 minutes or so to indicate to us if you have a comment on the agenda. If you do, we will stop right where we are and we will listen to that comment. And just be reminded that the board will not, will listen to your comment, but we likely won't respond to your comment at this time. So should you choose to take advantage of this, do so at this time, and give us the courtesy also of identifying who you are in the chat function. I'm going to move on then right to our special order of business. We need to annually demonstrate compliance to the requirements of Public Act 94. The resolution demonstrating compliance was included in our packet, and I'm going to invite Lisa Freiberger to review this report prior to our taking action on it. Lisa.
Thank you, Chairperson Cucci, and good afternoon. As was mentioned, the local strategic values resolution and accompanying memo was included in your board packet. This is an annual requirement that is embedded in the State Aid Act and tied to 5% of any new funding that we may receive. While new funding is unlikely this year, it is still, to the best of our knowledge, a requirement. We do not yet have a state aid bill. So we are using last year's, we're assuming that the requirement will hold from last year's state aid bill, and as is required, unless there is something new, we're to rely on last year. We have had a lot of help putting this information together for you. It does a nice job of demonstrating how we provide local strategic value in each category that the state has outlined for us. The requirement is to meet 4 out of 5 in all 3 categories. Again, I think this resolution nicely shows how we go above and beyond that. And provide some good information for our community about what we are doing, both for students and for our community at large. Would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And if not, would request consideration and approval.
Why don't we do it this way? Let's deal with questions first. There's significant detail in the document. Thank you very much for that. Any questions that need clarification on before we go ahead and proceed with action on this? Anyone?
I don't have questions, but I just want to comment that this is like a roadmap of the myriad ways that the college affects and enriches the community. So thank you for doing it and thank you for putting it together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kathleen. Anyone else, comment or question? Hearing none or seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the local strategic value resolution as presented?
I'll make that motion, David.
Thank you, Kathy. Supported, please.
Support.
All right, thanks, Daniel. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those that same sign, that motion carries. Now we're going to invite Kathy Kubiak to deal with 3 of the documents that were in our packet: the workforce stats PowerPoint, the PACE survey, and the executive limitations treatment of people monitoring report. So Kathy, welcome. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for your work, and let's go ahead and take it over from here.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees, President Pink, and members of our audience. This afternoon, I'm going to be presenting our monitoring report for treatment of people. And as I've done for about 10 years now, I will be presenting an overview of our workforce statistics. As well as every other year, we have an opportunity to share the highlights of our PACE survey results. So the board has received 2 PowerPoints from me, one being the workforce statistics. I'm going to highlight some of that data. I'm not going to cover all of it in my presentation. And then I'll also highlight the PACE data as well for the presentation today. So I am going to start by sharing my screen, and I will begin with the workforce statistics report. So here we go. So starting on page 2, I'd like to highlight data here in table 1 and table 2. So table 1 reflects our snapshot data. So as of November 1st, 2019, we had 645 employees represented here at GRCC, and they're represented in this report. Benefit positions are reported for the workforce statistics report and do not include students, contingencies, or adjunct employees. Females represent 51.8% of our workforce, and you can see from the average over the last 5 years, we've ranged between 51 and 52%. We have 140 of our employees are people of color, and this represents 21.7% of the total workforce, which is up slightly from last year's 21%. Table 2 represents our GRCC students and those that represent minority populations. So fall of 15, we were at 26.3%. That number has increased, and as reported by IRP in the fall of 2019, we were at 32.0%. Our target has always been for our employees of color workforce to reflect within 5% of our student of color population. So we need to continue our efforts to attract, engage, and retain a diverse workforce. I'm going to move to slide 6 just for a second to show how do we compare with our colleagues in other community colleges here. Again, our total employees of color are represented at 21.7% of our total. And as reported, our colleagues are at 20.2%. So we're slightly above the others in our state. We also collect data for new hires, separations, and promotions. So I'd like to take a minute to talk about our new hire and separation data. So this shows 5 years worth of data. If you take our totals and average or look at the total for these 5 years, we have our hire rate for people of color has been at 25.1%. The next page represents our separation rates. And again, looking at the 5 years, the 5 years of data on our separation information here, we had a separation rate for people of color at 21.1%. So our hire rate is 4 percentage points above our separation rates. That's a good thing, but these are important statistics that we will continue to monitor. We want to do a better job at hiring and retaining our employees of color. And then the promotion rate 5-year preview. You could see from the 1-year period that ended 11/1, we had 24 promotional opportunities, and 7 of those promotions were for employees of color, or a total of 29.2% for that year. We also monitor our applicant pools. Our report indicates that our applicant pools are rich in both female representation, or 62.6% had self-identified they were female, and 24.6% of those qualified applicants indicated they were a person of color. So this is important for HR as we monitor all of our recruitment efforts. We need to make sure our applicant pools are very diverse. And then the last thing I want to highlight on this summary of our workforce statistics is the last page, where we typically, even though it's not required for affirmative action reporting, we do highlight our adjunct workforce data. So while the workforce has decreased over the last 5 years, you can see here, as of the winter semester, 9.8% of our adjunct employee group are people of color, up just a slight bit from the previous year. So before I go on to questions on the workforce statistics, I would like to highlight our, let's see, I thought I could do this in one, but I'm learning. I would like to highlight our PACE results survey. So, what is PACE? PACE is an employee survey that we have utilized for many years. The acronym stands for the Personnel Assessment of the College Environment. And the data is collected and summarized by NILI, the National Initiative for Leadership and Institutional Effectiveness. We have approximately 56 items that we respond to, and these items are organized into 4 campus climate factors: institutional structure, student focus, supervisory relationships, and teamwork. We also utilize customized questions so that we can gain feedback on specific progress for our organization. So they were updated in 2019 to gather feedback that specifically is connected to board monitoring reports for equity as well as infrastructure and sustainability. So looking at our results from the most recent survey, our response rate for 2019 was 58.9%. I show a few other years of data, but you can see that response rate significantly jumped up from the 2017 survey, so that's a good thing. Employees do rate each item using a 5-point Likert scale, with 1 being low and 5 being high. We do have an overall mean score of 3.82 for 2019, and it's interesting that there was no change from the previous survey's overall score of 3.82. And then similarly, the norm base, and that norm base includes 87 different 2-year institutions who participate in the PACE study. The norm base overall score was 3.78, but it also had not changed from the 2017 survey. We have utilized PACE for many years, and during these last 2 survey administrations, our results show consistently high ratings. So these next 2 slides are to specifically pull out those items that were either rated high or low by our employees who responded. These are the top 5 rated items: the extent to which I feel my job is relevant to this institution's mission, the extent to which students receive an excellent education at this institution, the extent to which this institution prepares students for further learning, the extent to which this institution prepares students for a career, and the extent to which professional development and training opportunities are available. You can see that 4 of these top items are all related or all located within the student focus factor, and then one of them here was within the supervisory relationship factor. The PACE, the lowest 5 rated items here, and these are all within the institutional structure factor. The extent to which I'm able to appropriately influence the direction of the institution, the extent to which my work is guided by clearly defined administrative processes, the extent to which I have the opportunity for advancement within the institution, the extent to which information is shared within the institution, and the extent to which decisions are made at the appropriate level at this institution. So how is this data used? So just, this is our short-term vision. We may have other things that will be developed over the course of the year for sharing the data. But to begin with, just FYI, our Leadership Institute cohorts have traditionally used the PACE reports to identify potential process improvements to implement via their group stretch project. And human resources, we've presented in previous years sessions that were always open to all employees. We called them Putting Input into Action. And our purpose was to gain feedback on potential process improvements on these lowest rated items. This year, however, we've decided to present at the Strategic Leadership Team meeting. We're on the November schedule. We did intend to present in March, but COVID changed our plans. So we're on the schedule for November, and we're excited to share the PACE results and get feedback from SLT members. And then lastly, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the board will see some of the data again as it's part of the monitoring report indicators for a few of our goals, specifically equity and then infrastructure and sustainability. So those are the reports that I wanted to highlight, and I'm going to stop recording and be available for questions from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I'll begin with a question, and it's on the PACE report, the lowest 5 related items that the survey indicated. Do you know of that list, how many on that list were on that same list in 2017?
Mhm.
Yes, good question, Chairperson Cucci. Yes, we had all of those same 5 items on the 2017 survey results.
Thank you. Other questions on any of Kathy's reports?
I have a question, Chairperson Cucci. Is there any connection between the lowest 5 rated items and the reasons for any separations?
You have to unmute yourself, Kathy. There we go.
Thank you. Of our separations, typically about half of them are retirements. I do know that data very comfortably. The other half we do analyze resignations that we see. Typically, we have people who follow a significant other to another state, move out of our area. They have promotional opportunities at other organizations. But I wouldn't say that the lowest 5 related. We don't do formal analysis, I will say that. But remember that they are looking at the institutional structure. So it kind of depends on where they're going and what their structure might look like in their new opportunity.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions. I've got 2 for PACE and then 1 for the workforce study. So just looking at PACE, is there overall goal for that? I see that we score higher than the average institution, but are we trying to strive toward a goal? And then this year, I missed this portion of it. What percentage of our overall staff actually completed the survey?
Yes, the percentage completion was at, I believe it was 57%. So it was very high compared to our most recent and other surveys. And no, we have never established a set goal, but we do monitor those norm results to make sure that we are above as we have been this year.
All right, and then related to the workforce stats, my assumption has always been that adjunct professors is a great pool for future hires. First of all, I'll just make sure that, is that a true statement? And then with the number being about 9.8% of that group being people of color, what are we doing to increase that overall pool? So hopefully we'd have more people aware of the college, and that would be a great pool for us to identify potential professors.
Yes, I agree. It's a great pool. We have many adjuncts who go through our hiring process and who do move to full-time positions. For about 5 years, we did run, to answer your question about what are we doing to enrich those applicant pools? And for about 5 years, we did an adjunct recruitment event where we targeted our opportunities, invited the community, encouraged our employees to pass the word along about this recruitment event. We did it on a Saturday morning. The department heads and program directors participated, and it was an opportunity for applicants to come and learn more about what does it mean to be a GRCC adjunct, get specifics about, as an applicant, what to expect. And then they also had the opportunity to do like a pre-screening conversation with those department heads and program directors. So it turned out to be very valuable because we were able to enrich our applicant pool. But we have not run that in the last several years. Really, I think we stopped in 2018, only because we did not have the need to hire new adjuncts at that time, given our enrollment situation. So when that need comes, we will do that again, because we found that it was a very successful model to help us reach applicants. And that's, you know, remember, you're pulling from the local community for those positions as well.
I would even argue that it may be an opportunity, even when we're not hiring, we do that as employers. Sometimes I just have an open house or something so that group can be aware of the college, even if we don't have a particular job opening. And I think we're just frank and say, hey, you know what? We don't have any current positions, but you know, we may in the future. We want you to make sure that we get our hooks into you first. So might be a great opportunity for us to continue that practice, even in times where we're not hiring.
Trustee Brame, I fully agree, because in the past, and I think the key there is the transparency of what we're looking at. I know just even in my recent time as being president, these last almost 3.5 years, we've had several instances where people were believing that just because, you know, when you have some of those opportunities out there, and then the disappointment that they would express to me around, no, but I didn't even get an interview, or I didn't even get, well, it's because we weren't hiring in that regard. So it's exactly right. And it also, and as I'm sure Kathy sees as well with her people and with our academic units, depending on, you know, there are some academic areas that tend to have a wider swath of people of color as candidates as some others, that workforce itself just doesn't see that robust diversity. And so I think that continues to be one of those pieces in terms of analysis we continue to look at, but fully agree. It's that transparency of building that relationship, continuing to build that relationship. That's important.
And I do realize, Dr. Pink, that you're always out there recruiting in the sense that just by your mere presence in the community and people getting to know you. But I think that, to your point, we always can improve. So thank you for the work you've done in that area.
No, you're exactly right. Thank you for that, trustee.
Anyone else?
And Cucci. I have a couple of comments about that PACE survey.
Uh-huh.
I've seen it twice now. watched it come back twice, and it's looks to me, looking at the data, that it's been pretty constant for at least 3 cycles, if not more, as to what the result is. Now, all of those surveys take time, effort, resources to complete. If that's what we hope, is that we're holding ground, staying right there, I'm going to ask, is this the only way to know that? If it's got an opportunity for improving or changing, then are we taking full advantage of it? Because honestly, look at the huge jump you had in participation, and the results were just the same. And they were the same last time, and as far as I can tell, the time before that. So it's just a question of investing resources, and are you getting what you really want back from it, or is there a simpler, easier way to get it? But it looks, it's good information, don't get me wrong, but it's not changing. So just maybe a question about, is it giving you what you want?
I think I appreciate that comment. I think one of the advantages to something such as PACE is when you have some national norms to be able to look at in terms of, and I from an assessment perspective, when you widen the N and get some of the same results, kind of tells you is what some of those indicators, I think kind of supports the indicators. And then being able to look at that from a perspective of national norms is helpful. But always being able, I fully agree, always being able to look at ourselves and see if they're not only what the information looks like that we're getting back, but to also have those questions of whether or not is there another measurement. And I will tell you that when you look at the other measurements, I'm sure Kathy will probably speak to it. You look at some of the other measurements that we take at, it's interesting to me, the number of assessments that this institution does engage with. I'm a big believer that if we're going to engage in it, that it needs to be used to better ourselves. I certainly don't want us as a campus to get any level of survey fatigue, which is very real with us. And at the same time, making sure we're going to get our bang for whatever we put into. So thank you for that suggestion. But it's, and truly is something I think we have some consideration of.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else?
Yes,
Go ahead.
this is sort of a corollary to Kathy's question. What's the turnout and the participation rate in the follow-up, putting input into action sessions where it looks like you get some more nuts and bolts feedback on potential process improvements on the lowest rated items? What's your turnout for that?
Well, this year we being HR went to Donna to ask her for some suggestions because we have not been very pleased with our turnout over the past few surveys. I teased Donna that her staff comes because they love data. And I appreciate their input, but we really wanted to reach a larger audience. So she had suggested SLT, and we're excited to try that option.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, one more question. So, looking at the survey results, we're better than average. But is there a college that we look to maybe try to, break where we are over the past few years? Is there somebody that we know is doing an excellent job that we could share ideas with, or see how they're doing? If they have more significant scores in the survey, what are they doing to reach those scores?
We have not asked to dive deep in that way within the PACE data. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if that's an option. No one's asked me that question before, but we could find out.
I guess my only suggestion is that if you see to know what the composite scores of other schools of the total group, but if there are schools that are leading the way in this, and obviously you're one of those, it might be worth, even at your level, Dr. Pink, just having a conversation with your counterparts, asking them what they do. I know you guys go to a lot of conferences, you share ideas, but maybe something a little more specific to Kathy's earlier point. If we're sort of stagnant in this, even though we're good, what do we do to break through that?
Yep.
Good questions, thoughtful comments. We'll take another minute or two on this if there are other questions or comments. Hearing none, let me just say thank you to you, Kathy, for all the work that you do, for the reports that you gave us. You've given us something to think about. We've given you guys some things to think about. So thanks for the work. We appreciate it. And we're gonna move on with our agenda. On the line of special order business, Lisa, financial report. We had information in our packet. Anything in there that you would like to highlight for us?
Yes, thank you. A couple brief items. First, to close the loop on the bond refunding, we have worked through the majority of that process. We were able to secure a AA stable S&P report, which is consistent with prior ratings. I believe you were sent a copy of the S&P or Standard & Poor's analysis, which has significant data in it. Because of that and the market in general, we were able to successfully move forward with our refunding. And that has generated a total savings of $1.6 million. We were also able, again, based on the market, to structure that such that a large percentage of that savings is front-loaded, so to speak. So we will recognize over $800,000 of that savings this fiscal year and a similar amount next year. So we were very pleased with that. The process went very well. We will officially close on the 30th, but that has gone very, very well. So I wanted to close the loop with that. Budget update, the statements were in your packet. Would be happy to answer any questions. We are, of course, monitoring them closely. Several variations, but nothing that wasn't explained. And would be happy to answer any questions that you might have on anything that was included there. I can tell you, as I shared earlier, we do not yet have a state aid bill yet, so we don't know what the state will do this year. We are hearing that the recommendation will be flat, although we do not know that for sure. So we are still watching that. In theory, we will have something prior to October 1st, but at this point are still waiting. Our enrollment for our traditional school start, semester start, is down below our projection. It's down from a monetary standpoint about 5.2% below projection. That said, we have a much larger number of second 7-week courses that will start soon. And so some of those will add to that, our total enrollment number, and reduce that monetary loss. That said, that 5.2% as it stands now will reduce our tuition projected by about $960,000 for fall of 2020. We will, however, if state aid remains, again, as we're tentatively hearing, flat, you'll remember we have a 15% decline incorporated into our budget. So between those two items, we will still come out positive and have some room there. So we're feeling, based on what we know today, solid with where we are. We will be bringing to you a more comprehensive budget update, hopefully at your October board meeting, if there is time and room for that. We believe it's important to be able to actually show you in some sort of presentation mode exactly what we're looking at with enrollment and related tuition and fees. By then, we will have an exact state aid number. So we'll be able to share that net impact with you on both of those significant factors. If you'll remember, we have not yet brought to you anything around our meet and confer employee group. They are the only group that did not receive any sort of compensation adjustment in July. So we owe you that recommendation, if applicable, as well. And then finally, we'd like to give you a full update on our Higher Education CARES Act funding, as well as the new $2.1 million coronavirus relief fund funding that came to us from the state when the state cut our general operating state aid over the summer. So at this point in time, we are pulling all of that together, hoping for the last pieces of that information specifically from the state. and would hope to bring you a comprehensive update in October.
Thanks, Lisa, for that thorough report. Did that trigger any questions or comments among trustees? If not, thanks again, Lisa, for your work. And we'll move along in our agenda to updates, and we'll begin. I see we have Anaya Akeem with us today, the president of Student Alliance. Anaya, I'm going to turn this over to you and give you an opportunity to give us an update on what's going on in your world.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you all for having me here on behalf of Student Alliance. I'm very excited to share these updates with you. So in the past few months since our last report, our team and other student organizations have accomplished several things. Firstly, we set our budget, which was approved during the town hall in the first week of the semester. We have also hosted 2 real talks. And if you don't know what that is, there are virtual sessions. And there are conversations among students and topics that we might not normally discuss or be hesitant to talk about. The first one we had was a session about equity and inclusion, and Dr. McNeely Cobham joined us and helped us moderate. And then our second one was about Title IX, and Kimberly DeVries was with us on that one, and just like certain scenarios, and we kind of just broke it down. So if anyone was confused about what Title IX involved, then they would attend that real talk. And we also have another one coming up in the next few weeks on involvement on campus and why it's important and how us as students can benefit from it, only because student involvement, we don't get a lot of student involvement, so we want to encourage student involvement. And then we started a Instagram agenda kind of, so we made a project called Project PAC that stands for Positivity, Assertiveness, Consistency, and Timing. And it's basically like, you know, just to hold people accountable. We started it around the time when George Floyd was murdered, and we kind of just wanted to do something in our position that kind of just helped people understand different perspectives of different people. So it's not narrowed to specifically George Floyd, but that's kind of how it started. So basically what it is, it's like myself and my other 3 team members, we will post. So whatever we want to post, I could post like a piece of artwork or a poem or a movie that I really like, and just explain why it's important and who created it and why it touches my life. So we kind of did that just to let everybody know and help educate people on the multiple perspectives that are outside of their own. And then we celebrated Constitution Day last Thursday by tabling and handing out copies of the US Constitution and hand sanitizer in English and Spanish. Well, the Constitution was in English and Spanish. And that was pretty fun. It was my first time back on campus. And then several of our student organizations have re-registered this year. And we are looking forward to continuing to figure out how to connect with returning organizations and building friendships. So we're all kind of just trying to connect to see what's the best way to get student involvement. Because like I said before, that's been one of the things that we've all been kind of struggling with, especially since everything is mostly virtual. And I think that's it for my report. If anyone has any questions, feel free, please. And thank you for letting me share.
Sure. Questions or comments for Anaya? And I have a comment. First of all, thank you so much for what you personally do and what your team does in this incredibly challenging time to build a sense of community when we're just so separated from each other. And just want to applaud the work that you're doing and to give you encouragement. It's not easy. We know it's not easy. And we just thank you for what you're doing.
Of course, of course.
So with that, we'll let you go back to class, and we're going to move on with our agenda. We do have an impressive grant department report. We've got Lisa with a big smile on her face.
Thanks.
She's going to give us the skinny on that report. Go ahead.
All right. right, I will share my screen here. So the grants department had another good year last year. We brought in just a little over 5.4 million through 24 awards. 15 of those were for new projects or new sponsors. And then we submitted 36 proposals, and of those, 29 were for new projects or new sponsors. 1 was the continuation of an existing award, and 4 were competitive renewals, which means that we still submit a proposal, but it doesn't require a lot of new writing on our end or project development. So our goal has been over the last few years to diversify the grant portfolio. So that's the reason we see so many in the new category. We hope to continue that trend this year with the Lakeshore Capital Campaign. We're just getting started on that, and all of the sponsors that we approach for a grant as part of that campaign will be new to the college. So we're sort of waiting to see what the federal priorities will be. Those always change after an election. So no matter which way the election goes, I think we'll see some new stuff from the federal government, which are always good opportunities for us. In addition, so the last 2 quarters of the year were when the pandemic really hit. It changed, totally changed our strategy and what we thought we were going to be going for. In terms of grants, we assisted the executive team in submitting the CARES Act applications. Those didn't really require a proposal, so we don't count those in our totals, but it did bring in 7.1 million, just over that. And then we're also working with the Promise Zone Authority. They have a consultant who is developing their proposals, but we're working with them to get those submitted. And then on the back end, we will help with the reporting on those. On the left-hand side, we have our internal grants to faculty and staff. Those programs continued last year. This year, the foundation has opted not to hold those due to the pandemic and some travel restrictions. And so we'll go back to them again in 2022. And then on the right-hand side, we just have some highlights from the portfolio. And at the bottom, our Title III project is described on the left. That one is getting underway this year. And another big one was the Job Corps Scholars Demonstration Project. That was a Department of Labor grant that is serving opportunity youth in workforce training.
All right. Well, Lisa, we know that these grants just don't land in our lap, but every one of those grants is a result of a ton of work on behalf of someone on behalf of the college.
Yeah.
We know that that someone is you and your department, and we're incredibly grateful for the work that you do on our behalf.
Oh yeah, well, I'm so glad. I love my job, so it makes it very easy. It's kind of like having homework every night, but I like that. So.
Did Lisa's report trigger any comments or questions from trustees? Hearing none, we're just going to say thanks to you, and we're going to let you go back to work and keep plowing through grant opportunities on our behalf.
All right, thank you.
So thanks again for your work. So, moving along, just from a couple of comments about board self-evaluate, our self-reflection for you trustees and for our audience. October is the month where we take some time to reflect on how we work as a team, how we function together, how strategic we are, and you're going to be receiving a survey from the subcommittee within the next couple of weeks with some instructions on that. And you also noted that we're adding another component that's, in some ways, that's an experiment, and that is a conversation between each of you and Dr. Pink and I. And the purpose of that is just to have a dialogue about your perspective on how we function together as a team. Gives an opportunity for some back and forth. So we'll even reflect on that process when we're finished with it, in terms of how helpful that was. So that's all going to be happening in the month of October. For those of you who haven't found a time on your calendar to connect with Dr. Pink and myself, just reach out to Misty and let's get that on the calendar. Moving along, Dr. Pink, I'm going to turn it over to you for anything that you would like to report at this time.
Thank you, Chairperson Cucci, and I'm happy to see that Lisa and Kathy are still on this Zoom, I just want to give them huge thank yous and kudos. It's so nice to have an HR unit that works as hard as Kathy and her team does, and I appreciate her and her work. And I remember coming to GRCC some 5.5 years ago and discovering all the grant opportunities that come into this institution and how often this institution hits on both federal, state, and local opportunities. And Lisa Dobke and her team do phenomenal work. When you see those kind of numbers for our community college, to have that consistency of number, I would ask you not to take those thoughts for granted of what this institution is doing. And it's not just Lisa, it's the folks who continue to support that in terms of our staff and our faculty. So my big thanks to those units on campus. Trustees, our fall semester is off to a start. This is week number 4 of this semester, and as I described to our campus, the most unusual semester of any of our careers. I know personally from mine, in terms of what we have going. Yet, I will tell you that this institution has done an incredible job, and one of the nice things about having Dr. Connor on this is being able to say to him in front of all you, my thanks to him and to our faculty for the phenomenal work of truly flipping a college. We flipped. We were, previous to this semester, this institution was historically, the last several years, we were somewhere around 15 to 20% of our classes were online in some virtual format. We have flipped as a college to where now we are about 20 to 25% is on ground this semester, and the rest are in a virtual format. And that's because of a faculty that has stepped up to that plate. And that's also because of a staff on this campus that has done incredible work from a standpoint of getting students aligned, getting faculty the kind of resources they need. I can't commend this campus enough for how we have seen so many on this campus respond. And so I'm grateful to a fall opening that I think for all intents and purposes and everything considered has been very good in terms of where we are. I will tell you that there's several things I just want to touch base with real quick. I know many of you have seen all the information out about the governor's Futures for Frontliners initiative. And that has been, for us, the last week has been something that, now that announcement came out, that this institution is really digging at very hard to make sure that not only does our community understand, but our partners, our industry partners, understand what the opportunity is here. And so we have different GRCC family members that are going out into some of our companies and saying, hey, look, here's the opportunity. How do you want to engage with this? And what information can we give you? I will tell you, just this morning, I was out in Holland and out at one of our partners out there talking and some of our enrollment and our vice provost, Dr. Hoxie, our provost, Dr. Knettel, out there talking to companies about here's what this means could mean for your employees. And we're doing the same thing here in Grand Rapids in terms of making sure that the opportunity is out there so people understand it fully as to how they can engage with it. And so keep your ear out for that. You will continue to see us continue to push that to our community and asking them, look, you have an opportunity, take advantage of it. There's about $24 million is all the state has allocated for that right now. And 24 million goes fast. And so we want to make sure that our community is at the front of the line on that. So more to come on that. And we continue to push on that very hard. Speaking of the Lake Shore, as I said, out there today, having some conversations and making contact. As an update, our facility plan is right on board. That facility there at the West Shore Mall is actually interior is under demolition as we speak, and Our construction plan is right on schedule at this point. Thrilled about how that's coming right now. And it's also still nice to be out there this morning and hearing people talk about this facility. Our fundraising effort there, my goal is to hit in the 2 to 3 million range in terms of just fundraising in that community. We're already a little over 1 million on that effort. And so very thrilled at the position that we have right now in terms of how we get to that place of that facility. So keep you updated on that, more to come. And then the last thing that was mentioned earlier, part of this fall semester includes the launch of the Promise Zone here in Grand Rapids. And that Promise Zone, you may, if you're paying attention to your media feeds today locally, several media releases went out today talking about the launch of that Promise Zone. We have over 250, about 251 Promise Zone students who are enrolled for this fall semester. I believe that number, my prediction was that that initial number would probably be fairly modest and then grow over the course of this semester, next semester, and the summer. And I think that's what we'll likely see, especially here in this age of what we're dealing with the pandemic. I think that we'll continue to see that number grow, but to have over 250, a vast majority of those are Grand Rapids Public School students. And we're just really thrilled to get that up and off the ground and have the excitement around that here in our community as well. Those are 4 things of many other things that are happening right now. I'm happy to entertain any questions over those 4, anything else that any of my trustees have to inquire about this afternoon.
Anything?
I have a couple of questions, Chairman. Bill, could you tell me if you and Lisa feel like you've had to revise your numbers on the Lakeshore project because of the pandemic? When I think about the change in ratio of on-site to virtual classes, is that about the same ratio out there? They're now saying this could take until 2023 before we see a full, closer to normalcy. So I know we're going ahead with that and I really support the project. I'm wondering if we're seeing a shift in how our return on investments, enrollments, numbers look going forward, or are we still thinking we're on track?
I'm happy to hear Lisa's perspective from the finance side of things. We came in, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Lisa, we came in around a little over 1,800 students out there on the lake shore. Of normal, we're around 2,000. And so I feel very confident about where we are with those numbers right now, given the fact that we're in this pandemic right now. I really don't have a lot of tentativeness around that, Trustee Crosby, in terms of a high concern, mainly because with the cost of operation out there as it is right now, there's a good, we have a pretty good comparison to what we will have with that new facility as well. And I really, given of what we're hearing from that community and our community, our industry partners out there who are coming to the table saying we need to, now in this pandemic is a time that we really truly need to be pushing even more as far as education and training is concerned. I actually think there's a possibility that some of the things that this coronavirus has done in exposure and have sped up, I believe, I think will pay a bit of a dividend on the other side of this. I think we'll see a stronger enrollment. And as we continue to pay close attention to it from our own perspective. Lisa, any other comments on that? What do you?
No, I would agree. It's a great question. At this point, I don't have concerns. I think our enrollment will hold. I think when we have a single facility out there, our enrollment will grow. Some of that, as we're monitoring and balancing face-to-face versus online will certainly be a question. But the other thing to remember with this facility is a large amount of space there is dedicated to actual workforce space with machine tooling and welding and lots of actual machining type space which is being done in more in a face-to-face capacity versus in online structure.
I will also end with this on that one, Trustee Cross, because I love that question. And the reason I love that question is because we're having some really good conversations on the Lakeshore right now around partnerships at levels of companies out there that we haven't had at this institution before, levels of partnership in terms of the college, but also that community really starting to ask questions about what a closer relationship with GRCC looks like. And so there's, I think in the next 6 to 12 months, some really good synergy coming out of there.
Kathy, did you have a second question?
That was it. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else?
I've got just, Dr. Pink, I just want to reiterate how big a deal this Futures for Frontliners is. And I see this similar to middle college, where once again, GRCC is helping produce equitable outcomes for individuals that may not have these opportunities. They didn't have them months ago in this case. And so there are a lot of frontline individuals that have no connection to the college, and maybe their employer doesn't have a connection to the college, mainly probably because of the type of work that they're doing. How do we reach those students so that we can have the biggest bang for our buck as far as providing educational opportunities for these individuals throughout our community?
It's a great question, Trustee Brame, and I will a couple of responses to that. So number one, our marketing communications area has flooded our social media outlets with that information. So and that typically gets reshared and retweeted and sent by our constituents there. We have good partners in our media outlets locally. So Channel 13, Channel 8, Channel 7, 17, MLive. I just actually did an MLive interview earlier today. Those media outlets are helping us as well, because through many of their social media outlets, they then send it out through their own media outlets. And so to try to get at some of those who may not normally have a relationship with us, we utilize that type of medium to try to get that message out. I will tell you that I believe that this Future for Frontliners effort, I think what it will prove to our state is that this is an area, when it comes to this group of citizens, I think what it's going to do is prove to our state that this is something we need to be even more focused on. If you remember, the governor came out a year and a half, 2 years ago when she first stepped into office with the initiative of Reconnect. The Michigan Reconnect grant would have funded folks 25 and older with some or no college, no degree, would have given them community college access. What Future for Frontliners does is that it takes a level of that and really helps in providing that education for these frontliners. But that Reconnect is even so much more in terms of how many people would be eligible for it. I think what Future for Frontliners does is help the state make the case that we have these Michiganders here who fit in these criteria that are really wanting to reconnect, if you will, to the post-secondary credential. And I think it will give good reason for the state to say that means we need to do more, because again, $24 million when it comes to something like this, a statewide effort,
it'll go fast.
That'll go awfully fast. And so we've got to, that's why we're really pushing right now for our local and company and industry partners. We're pushing them right now to say, get it done and get it in now, so that you can get it as close to the front of the line on that. For those individuals who qualify, you need to be as close to the front of the line as possible. And so I fully agree with you. It's a great opportunity that we need to make sure our West Michigan people are truly getting in on this opportunity.
Thanks, Dr. Pink. It's always encouraging every time we listen to you provide little nuggets of future opportunities for us. So thank you so much. We're going to move along. We have one more update report. We have Dr. Frank Connor with us this afternoon from the Faculty Association. Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge President Pink's comment about the effort of the faculty this summer. It's not why I plan on presenting, but he brought it up, and I think the amount of work, the effort that faculty put in this summer it's hard to even imagine. He left out the words kicking and screaming, but we can just assume that was there. But the creativity, the hard work, it's just some of the problems to be solved were unsolvable, and yet people figured out how to do it. So I think as an institution, we have to be very proud. As the president of the Faculty Association, I'm certainly proud to represent this group of amazingly hardworking, dedicated folks. And it really was entirely, our biggest conflicts were always around student focus and learning and rigor. How can we do this in such a way that still meets our objectives as an institution and provides students what they need? That became the common argument amongst ourselves and with others. It's how can we do this and still meet our mission? Which is specifically what I want to talk about today for just a moment. It feels like there's a theme, and I think there's a reason for that. I think our culture and what's happening in our world today suggests a theme. On September 4th, 2020, the Faculty Council passed the following motion, and I want to share it with you. Given the recent events of police brutality, most recently the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and the murders of Breonna Taylor in Kentucky, George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and many other police shootings during the summer of 2020, an intensification of the trends we've seen in recent years, we can no longer sit quietly amid state violence against communities of color. We believe it's of crucial importance for those of us in higher education to take a stand in solidarity with our students and the communities we serve. We also see the need to affirm protesters, workers for social justice, and activists who are crucial parts of making our community better places. To that end, the GRCC Faculty Association will look for ways to address these issues inside and outside of the classroom to further the ends of social justice. We plan to use our social media platforms and all other venues available to us to get the message out. So while the original call was a movement comprised of faculty, college faculty throughout the nation, today on behalf of the Faculty Association, I bring this challenge to the Board of Trustees. It is our hope that all of Grand Rapids Community College will join the faculty in this cause. For the college as an entity to raise not only our support and awarenesses of these injustices, but to encourage this institution to utilize our resources and to direct our actions towards the creation of a world where all people share the same level of security, privilege, opportunities, and possibilities. At Grand Rapids Community College, we touch, influence, and have an impact on every person, organization, sector, and strata of our community. Education as a means of transformation is our mission. Let us be explicit about that mission. Let us be intentional. Let us be obvious. Let us not be afraid, but to stand proudly and do as the recently deceased civil rights leader, the Representative John Lewis suggested, and get in good trouble. We look forward to working together on our next steps. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. What I'm going to do is just open the floor for a comment or question, knowing that we're going to end how we always end with you, Frank, and that is inviting you to take your printed comment and send that to us.
It's in your mailbox.
Thank you. Because
I sent it to Misty before I started.
All right, thank you. You certainly gave us something that we don't want to ignore, and nor do we have the time right now to begin to think about what it all means. However, you did trigger some comment or some thought among trustees, so let's just take advantage of just a few moments. What kinds of questions does Frank's comment trigger? What comments are triggered? anyone have anything they want to react to at this time?
I'm curious whether, Dr. Connor, are you asking for us to sign on to the letter or engage on the topic, or what did you have in mind?
Yeah, the motion has been passed from the Faculty Association, and I was asked to come as the representative of the faculty to speak to the board and thus and speak to the institution as a whole, to let you know what our intentions are and to continue to build partnerships around this. It's not that we're suggesting things aren't happening, because in fact, I know they are. But how can we as an institution be even more explicit about what we're doing? How we are the community's college. I mean, at our core, we touch people every day. The impact that we can have on a community is profound. And so ours is simply an invitation, if you will, to join the faculty as we move forward. And we don't know exactly how that will be.
Thank you.
Cheryl, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathleen.
No, thank you.
Got it. Cheryl, I thought I saw you try to reach for your unmute button, and I don't know if that is an indication you had a comment or a question. I'm going to give you the floor.
Boy, do you pick up on nuance, President Cucci. Dr. Connor, we have a police academy on our campus, and watching graduation ceremony of these 87 cadets that really are exemplary and fine people. How do you think this resolution will be taken by our police academy?
Well, I have had many conversations with the director of our academy over the last couple of years. First when he was the faculty member in criminal justice, and now is the head of the academy. And I know that our curriculum is designed in such a way to meet these same objectives. I think they would nod their head, because I think they are fine people who have an intention of making the world a better place and understanding the broad role of what criminal justice means, what being a police officer means. I know the curriculum well enough, and having spoken with the director of the program many times, having spoken with the chairs of been a couple of chairs recently in criminal justice, and knowing both of them very well. I think this message is very consistent, and I can tell you, and I think it's fair to share, I received, when this email went out to all the faculty as part of our declaration as a body, I can tell you that I received just a wonderful email back from one of our tenured criminal justice faculty supporting this and talking about how our program is intended to help our graduates of the academy see the bigger picture by which this is intended.
Thank you, Frank. Any other comments or questions at this time? Seeing no movement to the unmute buttons, I'm going to again thank you, Frank, and thank the Faculty Association for its thoughtfulness. Also for your work. I want to echo what Dr. Pink said. I'm privileged to spend some time in the education space. And the common theme right now in this industry is it just feels like we're up against sandpaper wherever we go. We're not able to quite do it the way we would like to do it. It's hard work. There's gaps between our sense of the ideal and how we would like to get to the ideal. And we're all longing for the time when we can have those students in front of us working in small groups, interacting with each other, and doing the job that we were all called to do. So on that note, thanks again for your work. And we're going to move on now with our agenda. Move on to community connections. I believe, Cynthia, we have nothing that came to us. Thank you. Let's then go to the consent items. I'll accept a motion to approve the consent items that were presented to us in our packet.
So moved.
Thank you. Support for that? Come on.
Support.
Support.
We got support for that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We also had a couple of items, purchases over $100,000. As policy states, we must approve those. I'll accept a motion to approve the purchases over $100,000 that were identified in our packet.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there support?
Kathy? Yeah.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We now reach the point for our final open comment, public comment. Again, for those of you out there who wish to address the board on any matter, you're welcome to do that. At this time, we also encourage you to take advantage of email. If you wish to spend a little time, you're more than welcome to email any or all of us. If you email one of us, you in essence have emailed all of us. And we'd be welcome. We would welcome whatever comments or encouragement or questions that you have. Give you a chance to do that via chat. We're going to take just a moment, and I'm just going to invite trustees if they have any comment or final questions before we adjourn our meeting. Now is the time to do that. Anyone?
I just had one thought as we kind of move into the, through September and into October is, Dr. Pink, you talked about a lot of what's been going on, what's happening, kind of the constant pivoting that's happening, the 80% to 20% from in person to online. We heard from Dr. Connor too around some of those pieces. We also heard from student representation around the goals of trying to create community within these unique times. And anytime that there's some major event, these added constraints, it forces us to maybe think a little bit differently, to push and try to find some new ways to solve problems. And so I'm curious as we move into this, both from the reflection on these last few weeks, and then also as we move into the remainder of the fall here, what some of those key pieces of learning have been, things that popped up that maybe we wouldn't have gotten to otherwise, but we need to hold on to and learn from, and again, sort of rooted in what we're hearing from the faculty, rooted in what we're hearing from student representation as well, around those connectedness, but also just having to rethink an entire institution and on the fly in terms of how faculty and staff work and those types of things.
Yeah, Trustee Williams, it's a good question because that's been part of our conversation since March, because when we went into this, the notion that we kept coming back to campus was, so as we are doing these, as we're making these shifts, as we're making these changes, as we're making our these different deep dives at who we are and how we do our business, what are those things that, to your point, what are those things we need to keep and what are those things we need to throw away? Some of those things that we may have done in the past a certain way that we say, you know what, we don't want to go back to that anymore. And I think the answer to that becomes both at the 2,000 foot level and at the 50,000 foot level, because that's what we're asking our units to think about in terms of how they do their business and how they do things from a standpoint of whether it be instruction, whether it be outreach to students. And so one of the very fundamental things is that right now we have 4 delivery modes of our classes, 4 that we have going at the same time: face-to-face, fully face-to-face, online, traditional, the way we've been, what we call virtual, which is what we're doing right now, a Zoom class, and then hybrid, something of a combination of 2. We weren't that prescribed and intentional before. And now we look at that and we say, which pieces of that do we need to keep? And if we keep it, how do we refine it in what we're learning about right now? And so those are the that's one of the several things I would tell you that we are looking at very deeply. How do we utilize this even more in terms of how we do our business? Those are some of those elements we are looking at, but even more so in some of the processes that we have changed and processes that we've done on this campus for years. Some of those that we're not doing right now, we probably won't go back to the way we did them before. And so we are asking, again, at the granular level of departmental for that kind of analysis to happen, that kind of self-reflection. And then at the institutional level, how does that look? I think we're going to engage. I think we've been engaging with our business partners a bit differently now. I think it's going to lead to some really interesting things in the future. But we have to be focused on that. It's so important.
Thanks, Daniel. Good question.
Yes.
I think you beat Cheryl to the starting block when you made your comment. Cheryl, go ahead and finish your comment.
Thank you again, Daniel. That was an excellent summation. Just wanted to, I was remiss in not saying to Anaya to commend the Student Alliance and her leadership in celebrating Constitution Day on the 17th of this month. It's a pleasure to have students go, celebrate the Constitution and honor our history. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to commend them on that. Thank you.
You got it. Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to express my grateful attitude towards all of the college employees, how they've had to adjust to the learning situation for our present situation. I mean, it's been incredible, the amount of work that has gone forth to accommodate the students. And I'm also grateful to Student Life and Conduct for the groceries, the food supplies that have been available to students. And this has been a gift to the students, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Cynthia. Anyone else? We can't go 24 hours without another press release coming out of Dave Murray's office. We can't go 24 hours without really feeling good about the institution that we're privileged to serve and represent. And in spite of all of the massive and hard work and confusion and all of what we've been through since March, it's just, we're just proud to be part of this institution. So thank you, Dr. Pink, for what you're doing. You represent us well. We're grateful for that. The day will come when we can actually be on campus and meet face to face. That'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. I'm kind of weary of Zoom meetings. I don't care how good we get at this. I'm looking forward to being able to be in the same room at the same time. But until then, we're going to do this. I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and we're back together again, probably on Zoom at our next meeting. Let me remind you, if you don't have in your calendar an opportunity for dialogue with Bill and myself, take advantage of that opportunity. So with that, the meeting is adjourned. I don't have a gavel. I don't even think I can leave the meeting here somehow. So class, I'm going to turn it over to you to figure out how to do this.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye. Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good one.